another. So not maybe every lawmaker agrees with what you said, possibly.
So on the redistricting question, if we do pass something, it's not on, is
No,
it?
that one's not working real
This
well.
one's not working.
It goes off and on.
So on the redistricting issue, if we do pass some sort of a proposal in the state of Michigan to make our districts competitive,
Mhm.
what's that gonna do to all the money?
That's an
If
interesting
every
point.
district is competitive.
Yeah, we could have like a debate for a long time about that. And I've talked to some people about that when they were, the league has worked on redistricting for a long time. And a lot of people, there's another side to that. There's one side to it that says if we have a whole bunch of competitive districts, there's going to be a lot more money. The other side to that is, and people in the league have made this argument, if we have a more responsive legislature that knows like, hey, if you vote for this lobbying thing, there's a lot more, the idea behind redistricting is you'll have a lot more lawmakers who are watching their back and know like, hey, my seat's 50-50, I could lose. So the idea is that, hey, the legislature could be more responsive to their voters on certain subjects. I mean, those are the two sides of the coin, I guess.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just like, do you think there's any inherent conflict between the news agencies, radio, TV, press, the printing people who put out all the campaign ads, and they're taking the money, but then not willing to shed light on this problem? Or are there any news agencies or those kind of folks who have said, we are not going to run these ads unless we know who's behind it? Is there a little bit of a conflict there between trying to cover this in the press, but the press is making a chunk of change off this dark money?
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to, that's a great point. And it would seem like there's a conflict. Think about all the money that the TV stations are making off these ads.
Right.
And then, who knows in journalism, there's supposed to be a division between the people covering the news and the people selling the advertisement. So your hope is that they're divided and the journalists are making independent decisions, right? But you also, as a smart consumer of news, need to know, hey, this TV station is making a whole bunch of money off these ads that are being sold. And another interesting point, if you follow politics, there's a combining of like campaigns and news outlets now, right? And I know it's like in northern Michigan, there are some radio stations that are owned by a prominent political consultant. I don't know if there's one around here, but it's just something to keep in mind and look into these things. Who's funding this organization? I mean, we saw this in the presidential election. There were people going from Breitbart and going to work in the presidential office and then going back to Breitbart after that was done and writing about it. So I mean, there's all these things to take into account. There's been a huge, like us, we're a nonprofit that covers these things, and there's been a huge boom. Open Secrets is a nonprofit. They don't have advertisers. So there's been a boom in the public's interest in that type of news because it is independent of those things. However, and I will say this, we raise money, and people will always ask me, I'm surprised no one asked me yet, maybe you guys are too nice, where does your money come from? You can go look on our website. We post who our donors are. So I encourage you, go look on our website. See who gave us money. And we post that there. And if you're taking news from anyone, always keep that in mind. Someone paid for this news to be produced. Maybe not that specific story, but they raised money from somewhere.
Let me ask you this. What percentage of your money comes from the Democrats and the Republicans?
So
And you know the answer, I know.
No, I do not. My money? I'll tell you right
Why
now.
don't you say the question again?
Yeah, he said, what percentage of my money comes from Republicans and Democrats?
I mean, your organization.
My organization's money, right?
Organization's money.
Well, both of those parties probably don't like that I'm doing, would probably rather me go away, right? I don't know you shook your head?
Why?
Why? Well, I'm looking into what they're doing with their money, right?
Yeah, but they're both doing it.
Yeah, but they would still rather just have, I'll tell you this story. The Democratic Party chair, Brandon Dillon, he was in the State House when I covered the State House. When he became the Democratic Party chair, and after I got this job, we had a conversation, and he said, I hope I never hear from you again. Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead. But I don't know the political affiliation of all of our donors, honestly. I don't. I mean,
Thank you. Good presentation.
thank you.
originally from Chicago, we used to have a saying,
It's on.
originally from Chicago, we had a saying, our politicians are the best that money can buy. There's no easy answer to this whole thing, but what you said early on made sense. We have to take it upon ourselves to do a lot of research. And you can do that starting right here in your own backyard. Because I can go to any politician in the area and give them a call and meet with them and talk to them and ask them one or two questions that I need to know. But as it gets along further, and all the politicians start locally. So this is not something that's going to be fixed over 3 hours, or 3 days, or 3 weeks. So we have to research it ourselves. And if anybody wants a copy of OpenSecrets.org, I brought this with me. I'm willing to give it to you after the meeting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's one thing that I will say to close. A lot of times you'll hear candidates say, if you ask them about these subjects, they'll say, nobody cares about these subjects. They'll say that. If you look at polling, a lot of people look at polling. When you get a poll and they ask you what issues are most important to you, people say jobs, education, infrastructure, things like that. They don't say, like, having an ethical government's important to me. Because a lot of people, as much as people say everyone's bought and paid for, and it's all horrible, I think some people have a belief that their government's going to operate in an honest and ethical way, like in their heart. They still believe that. They do.
There's hope.
There is hope. A lot of people just say, like, my government's not going to, like, there are laws in place. That's why people are shocked when I say some of the laws are what they are. Because they think, like, we have things in place to prevent some of this. So my point is, if someone comes to your door and asks you something, campaigning or their public official coffee hours, ask them, where do you stand on these things? Because you're right, the person who's running for, like, dog catcher or whatever today, they'll be running for the state legislature in a couple of years because that's what term limits, does. People move up quickly. So. Yes, one more? Can I take one more?
Yeah, 25, 30 years ago in the Michigan legislature, it was customary for legislators to fill out financial disclosure forms listing the sources of their income and their revenue. And then it was customary too to hear often legislators stand up on the House floor and announce that they were not going to be voting on a bill because they had a financial interest in it. And that statement would be filed in the House Journal. What's happened there? Is that law no longer on the books? How can we get it back if it's not?
That's the first I've heard that lawmakers one time filed those disclosures. When was that?
Do you remember that? I started working in the Michigan legislature in '72 and retired a couple of years ago, and I would say that was the practice until the mid-'80s at least, and maybe even beyond.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I mean, I do know it's one thing that people are shocked by is there's no law in Michigan that says a lawmaker can't vote on something in which they have a conflict of interest. So a lawmaker could vote on something and not break the law and knowing it's going to benefit him or her differently than it would benefit someone else. However, in the Senate and House rules, these are the rules the chambers adopt, they have policies on these things. And it says, as she was getting at in the House, they say, if you have a conflict, you can, it's voluntary, not vote and say, this is why I didn't vote. But what we've seen, as she's getting at, years ago, this used to happen all the time. Now it's happening 1 or 2 times a year. We've documented this, that there are less people abstaining from votes. And one thing on this to keep in mind, I encourage you, you see these people talking about, my vote record's 100%. I never missed a vote. Have you heard people talking about this? That's become really important to lawmakers. So there's actually now an incentive to vote on things in which you have a conflict because someone's out there tracking you if you don't vote. Well, why is my lawmaker missing votes? Well, maybe he missed it because he knew he was going to benefit from it, and he was actually doing the right thing and not voting. So there's kind of another side to this trend that we have in this state of now everyone touting their 100% vote record.
I wanted to say in Leelanau County, the commissioners, the road commission, all of us that serve on boards and committees have to sign a conflict of interest statement saying that we have to recuse ourselves by leaving the room if there's any vote that would show that we had an interest in the subject.
Yeah, a lot of local governments have that, right?
They ought to put that in the state.
Thank you guys so much. Sorry about the PowerPoint. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you very much. Well, I will say, this league is like known around the state as one of the greatest leagues in Michigan.
Thank you all for coming. It stopped snowing. You have a safe ride home. I encourage all the league members to stay for a short business meeting. If you are not a member and you wish to join today, we have brochures in the hallway. If you're not a member and you wish to stay and observe the meeting, you're free to do that also. Okay, about a 5-minute break and then we will start our meeting. Thank you.